So, welcome, listeners. Today we've got Tim Rush out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, on with us today. So, Tim, tell us a little bit about you.
I've been a minister at the church here in Tulsa for 9 years now. Before that, I was a missionary in Mexico for a little bit over a decade. And before that, I had lived in West Texas. I got there through a missionary internship program that I attended right out of high school, and spent some time in Lisbon, Portugal, and returned to the States to work with the program. And being in that mission environment, I was able to travel to South Africa for a summer and Russia a couple of times, just to, I thought, to bless missionaries and help them. In the long run, I think it was more for my growth and God blessing me to get to experience different parts of the world, different cultures, which then led back to Mexico and now working in the Bible Belt. I'm married with 3 kids who are grown and in college, and one in the missionary internship where I met my wife. She's back in Mexico. So I'm living my best life, getting to work with a church that I love, getting to watch my kids make adult decisions, watching my wife travel around the world with a special para-church ministry that's really important to us. I'm living my best life.
Yeah, that's our shared experience, you and I, with the Crucible Project, which I mention often on all these different meetings that I have with people, because it's been such an impactful part of my life, and I know it has been for you as well.
Oh man, it was a life changer for me, especially as a dad, realizing patterns that I thought I was not reliving with my kids, that I definitely was in different ways, and realizing that was so scary, but then turning into a place where I could make choices about how I wanted to show up. Yeah, if I could tell anybody to do anything for themselves, it would be check out the Crucible Project.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm a leadership coach because of it.
And a good one.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, talking about that, today we wanted to talk about something dear to you right now, something going on in your life. What's that about for you?
Yeah, for me, I think it all comes down to the voice inside my head that says, who are you to speak up? Who are you to lead? Surely there's somebody better in this room. There's someone more capable, someone more qualified to take the reins of whatever the situation is. And so I find myself sitting on my hands, watching people do things that in the end I go, oh, I could have done that. I could have been a blessing there, but I let it go by, because in the moment that voice inside my head says, who are you to think you have something to offer?
Yeah. Well, and you were telling me a little bit beforehand about how that's manifesting itself there in your ministry sometimes.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Well, as a minister, sometimes it feels like you're giving a lot. You've been given a lot of responsibility, but not necessarily power. At church, leadership in church is so different. It feels to me so different than other places in life where you're tasked with responsibility, but you really have no way of holding people's feet to the fire when they volunteer. And these are the voices inside my head, but you feel like you don't really have authority to say, no, this is the best way to do this, because everybody else is, when they speak up, you have no way of saying, no, I know what I'm talking about. Let's go about it the way that I suggested.
Yeah. Well, and I see that amongst church leaders. And John Maxwell, leadership guru, says it well. You want to find out what kind of leader you are, go lead volunteers. And that's what church pastors do. They lead volunteers. And so there is a challenge within that. You don't have the power of the paycheck over a lot of these volunteers that you're trying to help. And then you go off, they say, here, build this. And you start building it. Well, I don't like that, right? Kind of feels like, who's the boss here, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's a, I guess maybe our church family occupies a different space in our life that really we hold kind of like family. Like if somebody does something that feels off, a lot of places in the world, you just shrug your shoulders and, you let it go. But in church, if something just feels off, people feel like they've got to say something about it. And by off, it just means we've not done it that way before. It's a different way of getting to where we want to go.
Yeah. And so when you're pushing out into something new, or they've even given you an idea, hey Tim, we'd like to see this ministry or this, I'm not sure what a plan or something that we want you to take and lead, and then you start to stride out, and then it ends up being off, right? So what shows up for you when that happens?
Shame. If I were a better leader, if I had a better plan, this wouldn't have gone. It wouldn't have gone off the rails. I wouldn't be getting pushback. I feel like that voice is so loud in my head that what may be considered to other people as simple pushback, I receive it as a loud yell, like, oh man, you are a bad leader. You didn't think this through. So I'm quick. I feel like my natural bent is to agree with them. Even if I feel prideful in the moment of, no, I know what I'm doing, there's a small part of me that's like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have been given the keys to the car anyway. I need to acquiesce to what they're suggesting.
Yeah. What are some of the ways you handle that?
There are different ways at different times. I feel like sometimes I just acquiesce, and I have zero boundary to say, listen, let's give it another try. You didn't understand me, or in a lot of cases, you didn't actually do what I asked. So it failing is not representative of what I asked you to do. It's representative of something else. So I just acquiesce quickly. And other times, I feel like in an unhealthy way, I will acquiesce in a prideful way of pretending like I'm humble. But the truth is, inside I'm thinking, one day you will be as smart as me, and then you will know I am right. And so I act humble, like, okay. But inside I know I'm right. I know I'm smarter than you. And I'm putting on this fake humility because I know one day you will know too that I am smarter than you.
Yeah.
So I have these different self-protections that I put up.
Yeah. And I want, pastors out there to hear this longtime pastor who's been in ministry for years, successful, by the way, has this going on in his heart, right? And you've got that going on, and it's okay. It's okay because you're human, and these people are human, and you're trying to navigate that whole thing right now. So it's good for our people to hear, hey, our pastor's human. He's human. I think oftentimes pastors put on persona of this is what I'm supposed to be. And, you and I were talking earlier about, you had listened to a podcast about how pastors would fall and the opinion. But some of the reason why they fall is carrying this persona, or this is what I'm supposed to look like. This is what everybody expects out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're living in that space rather than stepping into their power that God called them to, as they're trying to figure out who the boss is, right?
Yeah, man. That's one of the things that I feel grateful with Crucible and with coaches like you, Byron, is that piece of my first thought is this is what a real leader would look like. And a real leader wouldn't look like me. He would be much more type A personality. He'd be much more high warrior energy. And he's not, he doesn't show his emotions. If a question comes up, he doesn't need time to think. He's just decisive. And so I look at myself and I'm like, yeah, so I'm already starting out as not a real leader. But through this process, it's teaching me I am okay. Like it's okay to say, let me think about that. And it's okay to look around the room and go, hey, what do you guys think? Does somebody see something differently? So this process is teaching me I'm the leader that I need to be. God's formed me the way he's formed me for a reason. And it just doesn't look the way I wish I showed up. Because I want to show up like Byron. I want to step in with the deep voice, the commanding presence. And that's not how God made me.
Yeah. Well, and there's something to this piece of what do you think, right? And you might disagree with them, but as you're looking around the room and saying, what do you think? And tell me what you think, you're a great collaborative leader, right? Because then they've given you 3 or 4 things that maybe you thought of, they verify, and then they've given you 3 or 4 things you haven't thought of, but yet you've got the ability to go, oh, this is clearer. Now I can go this direction because I've got some clarity from each one of these areas. Now, you still may step on some toes because you got to pick a direction eventually.
Yeah.
But at least you're collaborating it. That takes some maturity and security. That, okay, this is the type of leader I am. I'm the one who can pull them all together and then make the final call before it's all said and done. Does that sound like, where you're headed?
Yeah. And the truth is, it feels like in the moment, the decision that I make, will I listen? Will I collaborate? Will I be decisive once I've listened? So much of this has to do with what work am I doing in the background on myself? Like how much am I leaning into self-care to take care of that small part of me that hears that voice? And when I'm consistent, when I'm consistently checking in, then I seem to make better choices in the moment. And when I receive pushback, I can recognize, hey, that's the message that I've been carrying since I was a little kid. And I don't have to let it send me to the corner because I'm bad. I can acknowledge the truth of the situation, then make an adult decision, which, man, that is so freeing when you're hit with pushback and you can go, all right, I can handle the pushback.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned self-care, and it is so important for pastors to have a level of self-care. I think just way too many. I'm around a few who do. I've been fortunate lately to be around a few who do, and they champion it, and they realize I've got to do this. But there are so many out there that just think, but I got to keep going. Nobody else is going to be able to do this but me.
Yeah.
They're going to think badly of me, even though they know in their head they read stories of Jesus who would disappear off to solitary places, and disciples are saying, hey, we're looking for you. And he said, I got to be with my Father. I got to be taking care of myself, not in the Whitney Houston way, but in a godly way, right? Where doing that self-care. So when you say that self-care, what are some of the examples for you that you use to be able to have that self-care so that you can step into that space and be able to navigate it rather than play the passive aggressive side of it?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is soul work. Being able to find spaces where all of me is welcome. And that's, to be honest, that has felt risky when it involves men from my church. But where I can come in and say, man, I struggle here, and this is where I'm coming up short. And this is a real conversation I have to have confessionally with my wife. Or I'm making these judgments about people at church and people that I work with, and help me walk through how are those judgments really about me. Which, to be honest, whenever I'm making those judgments, I generally need them to remind me, hey, how is this about you? But it's finding circles where I have men that I trust in my life, that I can be honest, and I receive their honesty. And then another big one is through coaching, finding a coach that has experience in ministry, and letting him ask me questions that so often go back to the same place, that same little boy who was afraid, and receiving these messages of who do you think you are, and realizing when people challenge me, they are not that voice. They have their own voices that they're dealing with. But yeah, so that's the first couple of things that come to mind.
Yeah, and that mentor coach cannot be emphasized enough for pastors, especially young pastors early on in their ministry. That is so important. I like this proverb. I use it often, Proverbs 15:22, that talks about, for lack of counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed.
Yeah.
And we've got to have those trusted advisors in our life. I was thinking about, and I sit on a Christian school board, and I help the administrator a little bit, because I used to do Christian schools for years. I was an administrator. And I remember when I first moved into my principal's role, I was in my head of school's office nearly every morning starting the day, because I had a vision for what I think I wanted to do in the role. I had to maintain some things that we were already doing, but there were some changes I wanted to make, but I wanted to make sure I was on target. And so I spent years, 2 or 3 years, just going in nearly every day to see him at the first of the day, to make sure, if nothing else, just, hey, you got anything for me today? And once I got that established, it was really easy. But that's an advisor, that's a mentor, that's a coach, that's somebody who is helping you get established into what I love what you said, who you are as a leader. You lead the way Tim leads. He needs some advice. He needs some guidance. He needs some coaching.
Yeah. To be honest, it felt risky, even financially, to do it. Like, I don't know if I have the time. I definitely don't think I have the money. But wise people were telling me, you need to step into this. So I did. And after a year, I decided my church is getting as much out of this as anybody. So I put it into my budget, that this was a big deal. And I don't know that they would know. It's funny. I'll preach things that people love, the spirit behind it and the vulnerability and the honesty. And they'll speak to me about, man, I don't hear preachers speak the way that you speak. And those people won't join me in the journey. They love the fruits of it, but they won't take their own steps into vulnerability. And it's maddening sometimes, but it feels like, yeah, there's work to be doing in the background that nobody sees that bears fruit in the public life.
Yeah, for sure. So how would you create a circle of safety within your church where you could do that without jeopardizing anything that could make you look bad or weak, or something leaking out that you shared in your vulnerability? How could you create a circle like that in your own church?
Well, it's tricky, and it's a slower process than I think any of us want it to be. I think if I could go back 9 years and start over, I would do it differently. But the things that have worked well have been gathering men that I trust. And for me, that started from the Crucible Project, inviting men onto this weekend. And after we came home from the weekend together, those that wanted to keep engaged in the work, we trusted each other. So gathering men together that I trust, and then somebody has to be the first one in the pool. And that's the scary part of nobody else has confessed sin, but I've got to, and not in a surfacey way, but really name, okay, this is my struggle and this is what it has looked like. And and it's so scary to be that first one jumping into the pool. But I've seen men like shoulders relax, like, oh, I didn't know my pastor struggled with that too. And so I can be honest here. And so then there's that beginning small group that begins to grow because other men see there's something special happening here. And these men, they're in the foxholes together. And so they walk out of the foxholes with a different sort of camaraderie. And so for whatever reason, they want to be a part of that. And so then over the years, it reaches into the church to the point where I feel like I can say things from the pulpit that I wouldn't have been able to say 10 years ago. And I know that at least my men and my people, this isn't new to them. Like they know this is true already, and they are heartened that I'm saying it in a public space. And I don't say it the same way, but whenever I touch on the subject, they know deeper truths. So slow, start with men you trust, and allow for that circle to grow beyond your control. And the willingness in whatever instance to be the first one in the pool when it could feel like jeopardy. Yeah,
it is risky, and some pastors don't have a church that size to do that.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to find an outside circle, and of course, you and I found our outside circle in Crucible, and I would always put that up as first choice for somebody. But the second is, I know this. You've created some circles like that among some Crucible pastors that are able to meet with you on a regular basis. And this isn't a deal where we would be sitting around a circle and constantly confessing. It is, we're coming as real, authentic, taking the pastor hat off and sitting as men among men so that we can just get some of this stuff. You just feel like there's a place I belong and nobody's needing anything from me.
Yeah.
Space, and you've created some of those groups yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. This week I was sitting in a circle of pastors, and in a circle, I mean on Zoom, because they're from New
Yeah.
York to Seattle to in the past into Mexico. And this week it just happened to be on Ash Wednesday, and it was just happened to be my turn to lead the exercise. So I leaned into Ash Wednesday, and which led me down a rabbit hole of accepting my own sadness and my own need for repentance. And so I'm sitting in this group with pastors, and as we're just, I mean, the exercises that we come up with are so simple, but when you're sitting in a circle where you know all of you is already accepted and everything is okay to be said out loud, you're able to recognize, man, there's some things about me that are really true, like I'm afraid of my own sadness. I feel like if I touch sadness, it will overwhelm me and I won't be able to get my head back above water. And not everyone in the circle identified with that, but there were multiple pastors that you could see in their faces, yeah, me too, and we're able to just ask, why is sadness scary for us? What's risky about accepting our sadness? And then what's risky about not accepting our sadness?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and not every man can get into one that's that deep. So, yeah, we offer here, just I do through strong leadership development, an opportunity for men to learn how to do that and how to gather circles like that. And so, yeah, to develop a community of men where they can go and talk about some of these things, like their sadness, or their struggle at home with their kids, or just the fact that it's been difficult to be leading this congregation lately because of X.
Yeah.
And what's going on inside of me, like you, Tim, you carry that message. Who do you think you are? So that there's insecurities as they lead people, which kind of circles me back to the who's the boss. Taking all of this now, how do you navigate that now? When you're feeling like you're not the one in charge?
I feel like when I'm in a good space, when I've been doing my own work and I'm reminded of where the voices are coming from, the first thing that comes up for me is I'm able to lean on my people for wisdom. Like whenever I'm receiving that message, who do you think you are? You've really messed this up. I have my people that I can turn to and say, all right, is this something I need to pay attention to? Do we need to switch course and do we need to course correct and change direction with the method of how we want to get where we're going? Or is the pushback something I need to acknowledge and push through and move on? But that's really helpful to have created a community where I can bounce ideas off of, and I can show up as not the guy who has all the answers. Because then that gives me strength to step back into the mess and not be apologetic for having the answers. Like there are some things that I know, and there are things that I've studied and I've read up on. And so when people push back, I had a coworker pushing back on a way that we do some things with small groups. And I finally said to him, man, I've referenced this book half a dozen times with you about a book called Helping Groups Heal. And I've referenced this half a dozen times. It's in my office. If you have more questions, come borrow the book. This is how we're doing it. And I mean, that is not my personality to say, this is my line in the sand. But it felt like we've had this conversation enough. I've been given the task of doing this. and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even know that was the right thing to do, but I feel like in the moment, it was the best I knew to do at the time. And I felt proud of myself for standing up for myself and being confident. I have done the research and study, and I have the life experience and work experience to say, this is the right way to go about this. And if you have questions, I'll share with you some of the materials that have led me to this point.
And when you set that boundary, how did that person react?
Oh, very. Oh, okay. I'm just wondering. Very much like, yeah, I accept your decision.
Oh, good. Yeah. So you got some reinforcement that, oh, okay, I do belong here, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I wonder if I had all this energy coming at me from other places, and this one coworker brings it up, and so he probably got a little bit more of my energy because he's a little bit of a safer place for me to unload on. Yes.
Yeah. So what if that person wanted to take their toys and go home? How would you have handled that? Because you've made a decision. This is the direction we're going.
That would be a whole nother level of voices of like, oh no, now there's consequences. But it would go back to those same resources of, all right, do I trust myself? And then that would go back to, have I been taking care of myself? Have I been reminding myself who I am and God's view of this? Has He blessed me with talents and gifts? And is that what I'm leaning into? And I may find out, no, I'm leaning into my own pride and my own wanting to be right. But if I'm sitting in community doing work, and if I've got some relationship with God where I'm actively listening to Him, eventually it's just trust and faith.
Yeah. Say they should take their toys and go home. Now, how do you handle that? I mean, they're going to do it. They said, that's it. I'm done. You got it. You know, they may be playing passive aggressive, or they may realize, and they don't know how to handle it, that they should just go ahead and step out. It's not their realm. Yeah. How do you handle that?
Well, I think, and this is so hard for me, but I think in leadership, you have to let them. Like you can't, I mean, with as much grace and kindness as possible, you have to let them make their choices and let them live with their own consequences there. And it's scary because that means other dominoes are going to fall with accusations of you should have given this person what they wanted. But sometimes you can't rescue and you can't change course for the squeaky wheel.
Yeah. And then how do you pastor them through that?
Well, this is hard because you want to offer to them what you've been able to receive yourself. Help them recognize the voices that they're hearing are messages that they've taken on somewhere along the way, that they, the fiery arrows of Satan seem like it's temptation, but so many times it just seems like it's that message that says, who are you for people to follow? And so when I'm sitting across from this person and they're ready to take their toys and go home, I can imagine they have a voice inside their head that's, when I feel like they're accusing me, they have a voice that's actually accusing them. And so how do I meet them where they're at, despite the messages in real time that I'm hearing from them, to help them deal with the messages they're taking on? I don't know if that sounds really convoluted or.
No, I like it because now we're full circle. Here's the reason why self-care, one of the reasons why self-care is so important. Because now you've gone back and unlocked your pastor's heart.
Mm.
And now you're looking at them in the same light. Oh, this is going on for them now. They're reacting from who's the boss, and I'm not the boss, and I thought I might have been, and now my needs aren't valued, or whatever it might be, and now your pastor's heart's on line, and you've done two things. You've led, which you've said this is a direction and this is a choice we're making, and own any mess ups along the way. But then secondly, now you're considering the heart of that individual as you move forward.
Yeah, man, that's so good, Byron. It makes me think of Jesus saying, love your neighbor as yourself. And I feel like what we're unpacking is how to do that in real time. Whereas in the past, if I heard somebody refer to self-care, I would think, oh, that's just so unnecessary selfishness, snowflake mentality. But it seems like that's what Jesus is saying is, hey, you need to love people as you would love yourself. So do you love you? Do you care about you? Do you take care of yourself? Because whenever I'm doing that, man, I am so much more helpful to other people when I'm taking care of what I need as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm no theologian, but I really believe the Pharisees totally missed that whole message when they said, well, then who's our neighbor? Right? They just got into the task of how do I follow the rules that you're setting up here, Jesus? And Jesus is basically saying, no, you got to love the person God made you to be, or you can't give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And yet he indulged them, and he told them who the neighbor was, and he still taught them how to love in the midst of that. But yeah, that is, there's always been a piece of me thinking, man, we're missing the mark here when we read the Good Samaritan story, which is an awesome story by itself of love. But that whole piece of, if we don't see the person God sees, we're not going to give it to somebody else.
Yeah, that's good.
That's awesome. Glad you brought that part up, because that's what you've done. You went and took care of yourself. Now you've got some to give.
Yeah. Well, as I'm taking care of myself, like I thought once I take care of myself, then I'll be able to take care of others. But it's this weird thing. When my wife and I transitioned back from Mexico, man, that was hard on our marriage. I felt like I needed to. I felt overwhelmed. She did not want to. Like her life made sense where we were at in Mexico. So we just weren't on the same page. It was very difficult. And my thought was, as soon as I fix my marriage, then I can help other men in theirs. And so often I'd be sitting across the table from a man struggling in his marriage, and I thought, oh man, I know how to talk to this guy because I'm walking in it myself. So it felt like God can redeem things even when we're in the mire, even when we're in the muck. God can take us and use us, and so much of it comes from the willingness to listen to God and the willingness to step into the hard work.
Yep. Oh, and this is so beautiful because it's coming back to what you talked about. Am I the guy? Am I the one? Oh, I need to be like so-and-so in order to lead this way.
Yeah.
But your vulnerability of, no, I am that, and here are the messages I've heard, makes it so real for somebody else. And that's what our world needs right now, is a lot of real. I am seeing the churches that are growing, the pastors are real. They are owning their stuff up front. And the congregation, if there's anybody who walks out going, well, I don't know, then they need to go on to another church.
Yeah.
Right? Because they really ought to be around people who are real so that they can be real and be themselves. So what a beautiful gift that you're giving your congregation as you work through these things, even though there are times where you're going, am I the guy?
Yeah. Thank you. That's encouraging.
Yeah. And it's just showing it here is encouraging to our listeners. Right? So they've got a chance now to go, oh, okay, I can go be real. And if they don't know how, call me. I'll walk you through some real stuff.
Yeah. Man, that is so good. Like, I can imagine so many pastors who, as you mentioned at the very beginning, they've been rewarded from a very young age to keep things in shadow. So much so that it's hard to even recognize, what are you talking about? What do you mean I'm real? I'm authentic? What do you mean I'm hiding something? And it's scary to take a look at what might that be.
Yeah. And it's so counterintuitive to this whole idea of being the boss.
Yeah.
Right. We champion, and I don't doubt there are some great leaders in CEO positions, but our culture champions these guys who are, oh, look at the leader he is. And I often want to say, I'd love to get around him and look at his character and see if he is, because honestly, he's just got a lot of power.
Yeah.
And he's leading from a place of power, and then he's sharp, right? Then he's sharp, and he's making these decisions. But I imagine there's a wake of destruction behind some of those.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're not vulnerable, they're not real, they're not engaging, they're not relational. They're task. So, and the pastor got to be relational. We got to balance that relational with the task, and how do we do it together?
Yeah.
So, yeah, beautiful.
Man, this brings up a question. I don't think we have time for it today, but with somebody you need to talk about. So how is this showing up in the pastor's relationship with their children? Because that, like when you mention that guy who's looked at as the ideal leader, and you want to know, is he leading or is he in control? A very good thermometer would be, how are his kids doing? And I feel like that in ministry, everybody says, take care of your family, take care of your wife, take care of your kids, but until it's their thing, that ought to be placed above your family time. And man, pastors need to be given a like some sort of get out of jail free card that says you need to play this for Saturdays, and just say, my Saturdays are not up for grabs. Or whatever time of the week. Like, it just, there has to be focus put on wives, spouses, children.
Yeah, for sure. There's that, and then there's a whole set of talks, I'm sure, around how do I manage this schedule, because a ministry schedule is not a normal 9 to 5 schedule. And there are times where you're answering calls and emails while you're sitting at the dinner table or whatever that really could wait. Right. And that's a whole another area. Well, Tim, I'm so glad you joined today, and then I think this is going to be very valuable to our listeners. Thank you so much for your vulnerability. And I do want to point something out that people may not know. When I say the word Tim Rush around the people that know him in Tulsa, they say, he's my leader. He's my leader. And you're leading well. Even though, and it's good for people to hear that you are leading well, but internally you're going, am I the guy? Right? They need to know that. They need to know both, right? But oh, I just hear reverence and good things all the time about Tim Rush. So thank you for what you do in the kingdom, Tim.
Man, thank you, Byron. I'm going to hang on to that. Um, and I have to tell you, it feels like I can be here and be in a safe place because it's you. If you're asking questions and you're leading me down a trail, I can go there because we've got a shared experience where
Yeah.
you have constantly been a blessing and a help and a guide. So yeah, I don't know who hears this. I don't know where this goes, but you're the one asking me these questions. So yeah, it feels like I can sit here and step into the pool, even if it's only up to my knees, because you're the one asking the question. So thank you for a decade of leading.
Yeah. Thank you.